So Keir Starmer's Labour government in the United Kingdom has made a massive decision this week. And that was to extend voting rights in the United Kingdom to 16 and 17-year-olds, massively expanding the voter base in the country to a group of people in the UK who previously haven't been able to engage at all in politics. And you can look at it as like a big opportunity, just like a political move to gain more power. But I genuinely believe that this move is kind of essential to saving the country as a whole. Because there are a lot of problems in the British political system, but there's one problem in particular, which a lot of democracies have, but the UK has to kind of an insane degree. And that is the fact that no political class in the country uses its votes or expresses its political power more aggressively or more successfully than the elderly do. And it is currently breaking the country. Voters over the age of 60 in the United Kingdom have a tendency to approach the political system seemingly with the intent to do as much damage to everybody else as physically possible. It was voters over the age of 60 that got Brexit over the line. Voters over the age of 60 that got Boris Johnson in power. And it was voters over the age of 60 that were the only group amongst all voters in the United Kingdom that still voted for and preferred the Tories over the Labour Party, despite that 14-year fucking mess that came to an end at last year's general election. And look, a big part of the reason that boomers and just broadly people over the age of 60 have such influence in British politics is, well, first of all, voting isn't mandatory, and voting occurs on a Thursday in the United Kingdom for general elections. So first of all, you don't actually have to go and vote, and they put the vote on a very inconvenient day for most people. So the people that are going to go out and vote are the ones who think that their interests are at stake and the ones who don't actually have to go to work, i.e. retirees. And in my opinion, this has done irreparable damage to the British government in terms of how it can spend money, how it can use money, because aged welfare in the United Kingdom is one of the most bizarre and corrupt systems of elderly assistance that I think I've ever seen. One thing you've got to understand about British retirees is that they are not expected to pay for their own retirement. Unlike here in Australia, where we have superannuation, which for anyone not from Australia, it's basically mandatory retirement savings. In the United Kingdom, they have a state pension system, where if you have paid taxes for, I believe currently it's 40 years of your life, then when you retire, you get access to a pension directly from the government. And it is a lot of money. The state pension in the United Kingdom costs upwards of £120 billion a year. £120 billion, representing more than 10% of the government's total operating costs, going to just specifically pension payments to retirees. Now, in Australia, we do have a pension scheme. If you didn't save enough, if you're financially ruined or something and you had to burn through your superannuation retirement savings, you can get access to the pension. But in Australia, that pension for the elderly is means tested. You get it if you need it. In the United Kingdom, there is no means testing whatsoever for the pension. So regardless of if you are retiring in poverty or you're a multi-millionaire, a venture capitalist with more money than you know what to do with, you are entitled to that pension. And no one, no matter how much money they are earning, is going to say no to that free money from the government. And another major issue that the UK pension has is that it is subject to something called the triple lock, which means there are three distinct ways which are used to determine how much the age pension will go up year to year to keep up with inflation. It will either rise directly in accordance with inflation based on how much wage growth is going up, or it will go up by 2.5%. Whichever of those three considerations is highest, that is how much the aged pension will go up year to year, which is fucking insane. Already, the aged pension makes up half of all welfare spending in the United Kingdom. And it is not at all unlikely that in the next couple of years to decades, that it will probably overtake, on this current trajectory that is on, it will overtake total spending in the United Kingdom on education. if the United Kingdom becomes a state in which the primary focus of the government is ensuring the comfortable living of retirees regardless of how much money they have or their ability to look after themselves, while at the same time, investment in education and children is shrinking, you are basically telling every young person in the country to leave before it's too late. Now, thank God that is not the situation here in Australia because of our beautiful system of mandatory voting. To give you a sense of what it's actually like here, voters under the age of 35 in Australia do not see a competition between the Labor Party and the Coalition. They genuinely see it as a competition between the Labor Party and the Greens. Amongst voters under the age of 35 in Australia, the Coalition is trailing third in terms of the most popular party to support. And in the two-party preferred between the Labor Party and the Coalition, well, amongst people under the age of 35, that enormous demographic, it's about 70-30. And look, with turnout in Australia at 90% consistently throughout history, there really isn't a way that the older generation can do the sort of shithousery to fuck over the younger generations to such an extent as what we're seeing in England, because, well, purely they can't win here just on turnout alone because everybody turns out. I want to look at two policies to give you a sense of the difference between the United Kingdom and Australia when it comes to trying to wrestle power away from the elderly. In Australia, the Labor government now is overseeing a reform to superannuation, basically to implement where if you have more than $3 million in your retirement savings in Australia, you are going to start being taxed from that point on at a normal tax rate. Because normally if you put money into your retirement savings in Australia, you get a beneficial tax rate of like 15%. But that rate will go away if you put more than $3 million in. Basically, it's a way to stop people saving up for their retirement and avoiding taxes to basically have a massive slush fund instead of a genuine amount of money to live on when they retire. And that is going to pass. Comparatively, let's look at the UK. Keir Starmer's Labour government recently tried to reform the winter fuel allowance. In the United Kingdom, if you are over a certain age, regardless of what your income is, no means testing, you can get access to a set amount of money to help you cover some of your power bill during winter to ensure that you can keep the heater going. Basically, a elderly welfare package to ensure that no one is freezing to death in the winter. It's a great idea, but like I said, not means tested. So we're talking about some very wealthy boomers, probably millions of them, getting fuel allowances despite the fact they absolutely do not need it. So the Labour Party was trying to introduce reforms to make it so that there was some degree of means testing. And the backlash was so intense and horrible that they completely backed away from it. And that was the point at which Reform UK overtook them in the polls and started to become the favourite to win the next general election. So Starmer had to back down. And the reason that he did was because, well, he would be facing electoral oblivion based on how extreme the reaction was from older voters. So seeing that he had to back down on that, it seems that he's pursuing a different strategy now, which is to expand the voter base to take away the power that elderly voters currently have. By allowing 16 and 17-year-olds to vote, what has essentially happened is that 1.5 million new potential voters in the United Kingdom have been added to the voter pool. And these are people that are going to swing heavily to the left. And of course, there's going to be some basis in like young voters who are pro-reform, who buy into the memes amongst like some groups of young men, but overwhelmingly, these new younger voters are going to be left-wing more so than any other demographic that has ever existed in British elections. And much like in Australia, this will be a group that breaks Labour Green, not Labour Tories or Labour Reform. So I think this is a good sign of things to come, because if the Labour Party is moving in a way to try and shore up a new voter base, it means that there might be some bold changes ahead for them in terms of how ambitious they're going to be with their majority. All throughout the Western world, I think people are going to have to come to terms with this problem that we're all facing. The United States hasn't been able to deal with it. Australia has. It looks like the UK is taking some step to try and counterbalance it. And that is the fact that in Western politics at the moment, what it really is young people wanting to make change and come up, and the boomers who have fucking ruined it for absolutely everybody. And that issue is going to come to a head sooner rather than later.